Hey plant gang, I think everyone really does know this harbinger of spring, this daffodil, this narcissus, a plant that is very commonly known. And one of the reasons it is grown widely throughout the United States, grown widely throughout the world as a spring flowering bulb. Now you actually put this in the ground in the fall and it develops through the winter, it puts on roots, and then in the early part of spring you do get this wonderful flower. Now yellow, of course, is a classic color for narcissus, and we're talking about narcissus species and all the associated hybrid daffodils that go along with that. They can bloom from as early as late January for us all the way through the month of February, even potentially at the beginning of March you might see daffodils in blooms. And you can really plan your landscape in a lot of ways around the daffodil blooms by planting several different iterations of daffodils. And what I mean by that is there are early, mid, and late season blooming daffodils. And so if you would plant a mixture of those different species and hybrids of narcissus, you're going to have a very long lasting bloom. So come on in closer, let's look at the flower very closely, which is really where the show is in this plant. One of the most wonderful thing about daffodils or narcissus just in general is how long-lived or lived of a plant they are. They really can last hundreds of years in the landscape. Of all of the spring flowering bulbs, again bulbs that you would plant in the fall and then they would bloom in the spring, daffodils tend to be some of the longest lived. Now for us in the southeast, you just can't do that with tulips. They're just not as long lived. Tulips and daffodils are probably the two most popular spring flowering bulbs. Let's talk about the flower just here for a second. The back side of this, these are tepals on the back side, and then in the front you've got this cup or corolla that is on the daffodil. Now the tepals and the corolla can be different colors, and that can really bring interest. And so the cup can be peach or white or a variety of different shades. The tepals can be a variety of orangish, peach, pink, white, a variety of different color combinations. And you can really choose a daffodil that really meets your color palette and the needs of your color palette. Again, I really want to hit home the idea that you can plant several iterations of daffodils in the home landscape. Early blooming ones, mid-season blooming ones, and late season blooming ones that really you can have daffodils in consistent bloom for a month. Now this is a very early blooming daffodil that we're seeing right here. This yellow one that we've got here, which again is the classic color of a daffodil, and it is kind of mid-February right now, I would say, and these are really for us in Knoxville, Tennessee, the first ones that we're seeing bloom in the landscape. And what I like is these ones that we've chosen to show you, they're coming right out of the turf grass. And in a lot of cases you can plant daffodils right in the turf grass, and by the time it's time to mow that grass, really they've gone and they've died back down to the ground. But you really need to leave the foliage on daffodils for as long as possible until they wilt down. The foliage that's on there, these long kind of bluish strappy foliage, you need to keep that on there until the foliage completely senesces or dies back, because that foliage is what is putting energy back into that bulb to ensure that year after year that daffodil will continue to come back for you. Narcissus is easily grown in average, medium moisture, well-drained soils in full sun or part shade. Good soil drainage is one of the essential things that you need to do to make sure that narcissus lasts for a very long time. This is a genus of about 50 species of bulbous perennials, primarily from Europe and North Africa. No serious insect or disease problems with proper soil and culture. They will last a very long time in the landscape. Here's a landscape tip. Narcissus are best sited in beds, borders, wild gardens, or open woodland areas.